The origination of the hospice was really the story of 5 ladies. The first lady to mention is Jenny Jamison. Jenny was a sister and worked at St Christopher's Hospice in London, going back 45 years. And her mother, Dorothy, the second lady, Dorothy Jamison, went down to see her in London and met the third lady, Cecily Saunders. And Dorothy, who was the daughter of a clergyman, learned all about hospice and hospice care. And while she was there in 1971, Cecily Saunders said to her, "There's no hospice between Edinburgh and York, and Newcastle ought to have one to serve the region. You must go back and campaign for this." So Dorothy came back up, and she worshipped at St George's Church in Jesmond. She spoke to the vicar, Geoffrey Bateson, and he and his wife Dorothy set up a little group to try and create a hospice. They brought in Dr. Mellor, late Dr. Mellor, who was a parishioner, a GP. It worked for 2 years, trying to promote the idea of a hospice. And she went around talking to all sorts of people, women's institutes, men's working clubs, diocesan synods, and she went month after month until she had been given over 100 lectures. And at the end of these lectures, people started giving her money. She had a biscuit tin, and she started to fill up with coins and notes. And then she expanded the group in '74 and got other doctors and got a banker and a lawyer. And they said, really, you should have a company. You can't have a biscuit tin. So they formed a company and put this money in the bank. But then earlier in '73, she got a call from Cecily Saunders in St Christopher's asking her to come down. When she got there, Cecily said, there are 2 ladies, and this is the 4th and 5th ladies. There's Mary Angus and Marion Alden, who were ladies living in Gosforth, and they told Cecily they're going to leave their estate in their will to St Christopher's in London. It was thought to be about £500,000. And Cecily Saunders said to Dorothy, you know, we need this money badly, but you need a hospice in Newcastle. You need this bequest in Newcastle. Go and see these ladies and persuade them to leave their money to a hospice in Newcastle. So Dorothy went to see the ladies. They weren't best pleased. The ladies said, well, you know, where's the hospice? They said, we're going to build it. But you haven't built it. They said, it's pie in the sky. You know, why should we leave our money to pie in the sky? It's going to go to Cecily Saunders. And that, would you believe, went on for 10 years. In fact, one of the ladies died before the hospice was built. And fortunately, the other lady was an executor of her will, and it was arranged that the money did come to the hospice. The first lady died, and the second lady was brought to the hospice when it was being commissioned. The second lady Marion saw the hospice, came into it, and was shown it by Jeff Doran, who was director then of the hospice. And she still wasn't persuaded, but eventually she was persuaded within a few weeks to make her will and leave her bequest. So Marion was persuaded to leave her bequest to the hospice, and sadly she died a few months later before it opened. So neither of the ladies saw it opened. But without these 5 ladies, Jenny Jamison, Dorothy Jamison, Cecily Saunders, Mary Angus and Marion, all of them, the hospice would not have been originated, and it wouldn't have been the place it was today. The meetings in Dorothy's house were most interesting for 2 reasons. One, at the end of them, her husband, Geoffrey, used to go across to the corner cabinet and pull out a bottle of gin and tonics, and we all lived in Jesmond, so there was no drink driving problem, and they were enjoyable. But the other thing that happened was we had numerous problems. There was problems with getting the land, and there was problems with staffing, there was problems with recruiting staff, always problems with funding. And many of the meetings ended with an unsolved problem. And Dorothy always finished in the same way. Dorothy always said, I'll have to pray tonight. And we were quite sure that she had a connection, a direct hotline up there, because the next day these problems went away. We'd hear the next day that the health authority were giving us Collingwood Clinic land. We'd hear that we had funding. It was true. We did believe that Dorothy's faith carried us forward throughout those years. It's beyond doubt. At the last minute, despite the brief being complete, we reviewed it, and we added this particular room. It was to be a room of private prayer off the chapel, so people who, and even if they didn't want to pray, they could come and have peace if they were bereaved or if they wanted to think things through. And this room was put into the brief for Dorothy because Dorothy requested. And it's interesting, her name is on the entrance to it to commemorate her part in creating the hospice. I think to her, the most important thing would be the chapel. And it is unchanged. The beautiful thing about the chapel, which came through the brief, was it had to be available to all denominations or none. When the hospice was first opened, the Jewish leader of the Jewish faith was here. All the denominations were here. It was a marvelous occasion. So a hospice serves all the denominations and non-denominations. Atheists are treated the same way here. I mean, the great rule of the hospice is nobody can pay for anything. It's all given with love and care. And I think that's what Dorothy would sense when she walked in here with a hot line up there. She would see it today, and she would know that her work was being continued. The mission had been fulfilled, and it was going on. Because when you walk in that door, you can sense the care and the faith that's here, even for the non-believers. The faith is here. I think that's the key to the hospice movement.